As the saying goes, the bigger the company, the harder they fall. Well, that might not be the exact saying, but it's accurate enough for what we're going to talk about. Growing up, we knew what stores and what companies were the big kahunas, and that meant they couldn't be touched by the competition or an unstable market. But the world of business has changed and the consumer has shifted. A lot of these big companies either didn't plan for the future or their product wasn't meant to stand the test of time. Stick around until the end to find out which company didn't make any money at all last year and yet stays afloat. Before we roll up our sleeves and look at the books, take a moment to subscribe to The Richest by clicking on that lovely red subscribe button. While you're at it, give this video a like and check out our community page to meet cool viewers just like you. Now here are 10 big companies that are dying. Cue the funeral music. The first company we're going to talk about was an icon in the early 2000s. You might have even thought that this company already went under years ago, but it is holding on to life like Anakin in Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. We're talking about Blackberry. Yes, those iconic phones from our teenage years have been dying slowly over time since the innovation of smartphones was perfected. We're surprised that Blackberry didn't close up shop when the first iPhone came out. In 2013, they had 85 million subscribers, but that number dwindled down to 23 million. That's a loss of more than half of its subscribers. As smartphones have become a staple in the household, Blackberry just wasn't making as much money as it was when it was the first to come out with more complex phone technology. It simply couldn't keep up with the constant changes. In 2016, the company announced that it would stop focusing on phones and focus more on software, but now it's recently struck a deal with Verizon. Rumor has it that this signals the return to the phone business for them, but we won't be seeing that in 2019. Our next company giant is a fast food chain you wouldn't think of as a dwindling conglomerate. Believe it or not, McDonald's is not as popular as it once was. As our society today goes more in the direction of eating healthier, the Golden Arches are getting more criticism than ever for being unhealthy. With restaurants like Panera, which is taking a more health-conscious focus, it seems that consumers are finally caring about what goes into their mouths. Plus, there have been plenty of documentaries about how McDonald's allegedly makes their food with questionable ingredients that are guaranteed to make you sick if you eat too much. Even when faced with the criticism, Mickey D's stood strong on their stance and swore that they wouldn't give in to health trends like kale and Greek yogurt. This ended up working against them because they eventually introduced kale to their menus. More McDonald's stores are closing each year. With the stores that are left, they're being remodeled to look more like a trendy food chain. The only reason why they had some growth recently was because of cutting costs. Tech analysts fear that McDonald's stocks are going to go on a steep decline soon. Clothing stores are not immune to falling apart either. Well, we meant that metaphorically. Poorly made clothes can fall apart. Even though clothes are something that we need as a human necessity, there are plenty of retailers willing to dress people of all shapes and sizes. You could say that Abercrombie Fitch started to take a hit in their stocks after their CEO Mike Jeffries said that he didn't want fat people or not cool kids wearing his clothes. In case you ever had a theory that the chain only catered to the popular kids at school, well, you were right. The comments were originally made in 2006 and they resurfaced again in 2013. Each time the comments resurfaced, more people started to boycott the clothing chain. In 2015, the chain closed about 60 stores nationwide, which was major for such a successful company. It seems that 2019 is going to be another rough year for Abercrombie Fitch as they are planning to close another 40 stores. With a bad reputation, sales eventually suffered for the expensive clothing store. Plus, their stocks are continuing to drop, and it's only a matter of time before the chain becomes a distant memory. Sometimes a company could be on the decline for a while, but you never see it because their CEO is so filthy rich. Tesla's stocks have been on the decline lately, and when they announced that they were going to be closing their stores, people were sure that it meant that the company was eventually going to close too. Tesla's CEO seems to be pretty these days, with Elon Musk working on getting humans to Mars on a budget. Tesla cars are certainly expensive, but they are getting bought. When Tesla announced the plan to close the majority of their stores in 2019 after cutting the prices on their electric cars, it seemed that people would have to go through other avenues for the pricey car. But then Tesla did a 180 and now they're apparently not going to close their stores. Instead, they're going to raise the price of their cars by 3%. However, while the turnaround could be good news for Tesla employees, business experts are skeptical. The quick change of mind means that there was a gross lack of planning when the conflicting announcements were made in the first place. They made around $300 million in their third quarter of 2018, so it's a wonder why they would cut a tree root while it was still growing. Speaking of having a good 2018, Epic Games, the company responsible for creating Fortnite, once had a profit of $3 billion. Considering that Fortnite is one of the most popular video games out there right now, it's no surprise that Epic Games is reaping all of the rewards for their hard work. But with great success could also come a great downfall unless Epic Games has a plan B ready to go. While they enjoy their time at the top, it seems that there's a more popular game coming around called Apex Legends. Granted, it was only released February 4th, 2019, so maybe we're calling it slightly too early. But many believe that Apex Legends will surpass the success of Fortnite. Apex Legends was developed by Respawn Entertainment and it has gotten more favorable reviews than the Epic Games crown jewel. Given that people can't help but to compare the two, it seems like the new kid in town is coming out on top. We're not going to say that this means Epic Games is on the decline, but this is their chance to come out with something better that will keep them rolling in the billions. Sometimes it's not just one company that's dying, but instead an entire industry. Ever since streaming services like Hulu started featuring primetime network shows with their service, people are starting to cut the cable and stick with online streaming. With major companies like Time Warner Cable being sold to Spectrum, it's a true sign of the times. Given that cable companies have rarely been easy to work with, streaming services have been a welcome change in the world of home entertainment. Many TVs these days even come with their own source of Wi-Fi and data, so pretty soon we won't even need to depend on a cable company for internet. Phone companies are also joining the internet service bandwagon. Needless to say, you might want to be nice to the next cable customer service rep because they might be out of a job pretty soon. In 2018 alone, 3 million people discontinued their cable service, which is double the amount than 2017. If that is not a sign of the demise of cable, we don't know what is. Our next company is a lesson in oversaturation. Remember when Starbucks was at its peak in popularity and there seemed to be a Starbucks around every corner? That wasn't just a saying, it was actually true. Just look at major cities like New York and Seattle. If the line was too long at one Starbucks, you only had to walk a few more blocks to another Starbucks and hop into their shorter line. At the time these numerous locations were being built, it made sense. If people had to wait too long in line for a cup of coffee, they would eventually leave. Starbucks had the money to meet the demand, but today, those numbers are dwindling. People are forgoing the major coffee chains and heading towards local businesses. Also, people are no longer willing to pay a ton of money for a single cup of joe when someone down the street makes it better and cheaper. Starbucks used to close about 50 stores per year. But in June 2018, the coffee giant announced that they would be closing 150 stores in 2019. That's 3 times more than their average. We've learned from Abercrombie Fitch that even the mighty can fall. However, there's an even bigger giant out there that is finally seeing a decline in sales. Victoria's Secret stock has been on the decline since 2016, and it's not showing signs of coming back up. The lingerie chain has often been criticized for not only targeting just one specific body type, but also for making cheap products and selling them at expensive prices. For any person who has been to a Victoria's Secret, you either feel like you belong or you don't. There's no middle seat. With lingerie startups on the rise offering a better-made product for a cheaper price, Victoria's Secret has a dilemma on its hands. Plus, these startups are more inclusive of different people and body types, which already gives them the leg up over Victoria's Secret. They are owned by L Brands, which is the same company that owns Bath & Body Works. To combat the loss in profits, Victoria's Secret is planning to close 53 stores in 2019. So if you're a big fan of the chain, it might be time to stock up before they disappear completely. How does a company survive if it is not making money? Let's take a look at Spotify to find out. Even though the music streaming service has a monthly subscription option of over $10 per month, it's not going towards the company's profits. Despite having over 140 million users, Spotify found itself $600 million in the hole in 2017. They paid a few billion to content creators, paid their employees, and covered costs to make their platform work, but again, they ended up in the red. However, in 2018, they found themselves with 191 million users, with 87 million of those users being paid subscribers. Like the story of the tortoise and the hare, it seems slow and steady wins the race. In 2018, they were just $6.8 million in the hole. Compared to previous years, this was a lot better, if not a vast improvement. But time will only tell on how much longer Spotify will last on this business plan, especially with competitors like Apple Music on the market. Even though Jeff Bezos is one of the richest people in the world and Amazon is clearly the most popular website on the internet, that doesn't mean that there are mass profits to be had. In fact, Amazon has never made money. That might be hard to believe considering the popularity of the website and the variety of items you can buy with a simple click. There's a reason for this, but the lack of profit doesn't affect Bezos. The company has struggled with making money since its launch in 1994. While Amazon has cash flow that's in the billions, that money is being used to pay employees, partners, and more. Basically, all the money that Amazon is bringing in is being used and put back into the company. With things like free shipping with Amazon Prime and other inventions like the Fire Stick, Amazon's expenses are ridiculously pricey. This sounds like a terrible business plan, but as a result, Amazon didn't have to pay taxes on their billions that they brought in because they went back to the company. What do you think of these 10 big companies that are dying? Do you use any of these services? Can they be saved? Tell us what you think in the comments and make your voices heard. Thanks for joining us today, and before you go sell your shares on these companies, don't forget to subscribe and give this video a like. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.